As far as legendary heroes go, the Green Knight was one of the first and probably arguably one of the worst, which is nice that he got a little buff in the last patch. Not that really Bretonnia needed any more buffs, but the main thing is that due to changes of Blessing of the Lady, he got his physical resistance buffed up to 55%, I think, which now actually gives him an effective 70% resistance against non-magical attacks. If you add in the extra 15% ward save from Blessing of the Lady, of course, he's unbreakable, so he'll always have a Blessing of the Lady. This replay from Pigman here, who's taking the Green Knight against the Dwarfs, where he has 100% armor-piercing damage, 430 weapon strength, which really isn't that much, but as far as ethereal units go, he does have very good stats overall. 60 attack, 50 defense, 85 charge bonus, 5,000 HP is not amazing, but it's pretty on par for like a horse character, so not necessarily paying the ethereal tax that a lot of other ethereals pay with their HP. It makes him okay. He is quite expensive, does give you terror for Bretonnia as well, has a little bit of self-healing in the forest. But yeah, paired with the Enchantress can be decent. We've just got the one Questing Knight here and the one Grail Guardian on the other side, so a tasteful limited amount of Grails, as is, you know, kosher with the tournament rules. We've got some peasant mobs up front, 4 foot squires, looks like 4 pox arrows, and yeah, fire arrows as well. Interesting choices. On the opposite side here, it looks like a pretty Chad build from the Dwarfs. We've got 2 flame cannons, which is definitely going to be some fun. Thorak Ironbrow, obviously competitive. Got some Ekrins, miners, and some other miners blasting charges around. Some rangers as well. And the Dragonback Slayers plus 2 additional regular Slayers. Dwarf Warriors shoring up that flank on the far side. Let's see here. The flame cannons immediately going to start throwing out shots. Thorak comes into duel. Or rather, the Green Knight comes into duel Thorak. Now, this is a little bit tricky because Thorak is one of the few units that, for the Dwarfs, has innate fire damage, or rather magic damage, right, on his melee attacks. He is going to do full damage to the Green Knight. Beautiful setup for those Slayers there to get hit by that Comet from the Fae, as she also eats some blasting charges here. Yeah, Rune of Slowness kind of counteracting there. And the Green Knight loses out on the uptime of Dolores' Blade. Which, to be honest, one thing they could do, maybe to buff the Green Knight, is to maybe make this area of effect. Maybe reduce the weapon strength buff to 25%, make it an area of effect. I think that would actually help quite a bit, given that Bretonnia doesn't have any support characters. And again, like, given their current balance, they don't really need buffs, necessarily, but just from an overall perspective, right? Assuming that some of these other units maybe get brought into balance a little bit. Definitely be nice to see for Bretonnia some kind of support hero. There's that excellent Friar mod, right? There's a set of Bretonnia mods that's just really excellent, that adds quite a bit to their campaign that I would definitely recommend. I can't remember offhand. I'll leave a comment down below with the name of the mod and a link to it, just because I can't remember it when I'm live casting right now. But anyway, Flame Cannon's absolute raining some ruin here. Along with the blasting charges, the infantry for Bretonnia is just getting absolutely bamboozled and kablasted, you might say. But Squires are decent. They're going to have some anti-infantry ability here, which will certainly help. And the archers being able to get in range to countershoot the flame cannon crews is super important here. So Bretonnia, big man playing exactly how he should, although certainly taking some losses. Definitely as he advances here, Thorax standing firm along with many rangers and miners here. Yeah, mostly the Dwarfs not having too many leadership issues yet, but the Questing Knights come in. Nice hammer and anvil with the Grail Guardians. Maybe just a double hammer, to be honest. Certainly effective. They're able to just clobber a few units here and then swiftly pull away from those Slayers. The Enchantress and the Green Knight also moving through. The Green Knight's terror in particular, even though the Dwarfs have good leadership, it is a source of terror for Bretonnia, which generally lacks so good sources of terror. I mean, obviously, Hippogriff Knights are pretty good right now. Can be good in this matchup, although a little bit vulnerable to counter Slayers. Green Knight, certainly an interesting choice, although he's tricky to use well. The rest, what do you got, like Manticore summons, and then maybe the character on a Hippogriff, which, again, can be decent here, but also vulnerable, so not a lot of options. In terms of magic, I mean, obviously you're going to want Lure of Life, most likely. Lure Beast is cool and all. Flock of Doom can be effective if you're spamming it a lot, but if you're summoning the Manticores, it's decently expensive, and they have a relatively short uptime, so I'm not sure if it's always worth it at the current moment. That's why you don't see it as often maybe as you used to. Or the factions that can take it, but nonetheless, Enchantress here, even though she's fighting Slayers, very important that she has the Peasants to kind of eat the hits for her, so she's not getting fully surrounded here. She only has to face off against like 2 to 3 Slayers at a time instead of, you know, double that amount. Although these peasant mobs are not doing too well in terms of their leadership. Big Man's going to pull her away before they actually rout so that he can get to safety away from those Slayers, not get tangled up. And the Grail Guardians, again, sweeping up and around. Questing Knights also staying on the move, doing a good job staying mobile. We check in with the Green Knight. Where is he at? Somewhere. Yes, charging back in once again, gloriously. He's only 20 kills, despite everything. 600 value, which again, it's not incredible. His splash attacks, relatively low weapon strength, means he doesn't do a crazy amount of damage, even though it is all armor piercing. To like multi-model infantry units and such, he can be pretty good at dueling other characters, but in this particular battle, obviously, as mentioned, with Thorek, you don't necessarily want to take that duel unless you absolutely have to, or you have, you know, certain things kind of stacking it in your favor. But Favor of the Fae, regrowth on that unit of Grail Guardians, juicing up their melee attack, healing them up. I believe they already have perfect vigor, so it's not like the vigor refresh is necessarily benefiting them, but yeah, Foot Squire is also hanging on here, contributing a little bit of extra damage across the board. The Enchantress definitely taking some damage, just got to be careful. But the Grail Guardian should be able to come in here and burst down those Ekron's Miners, get them off her back, so she can now pull away once again to safety, continue that AoE drain. Ooh, charging into some Slayers, risking it for the biscuit. This phase is maybe setting up another blob here for another Comet, perhaps. Looks like something's coming in. She drops a little heal there and is able to pull away before the Questing Knights move in. This is definitely a way to deal with Slayers when you're playing Bretonnia. Once you have them isolated in the late game, you take them out a lot of their support, you can charge them from multiple angles at the same time, or, you know, consecutively, especially if they're blobbed up around a character and you get really nice clean rear charges, you can burst them down very quickly given their lack of armor and melee defense. Even though you'll probably take a little bit of damage in the process, this is like the least risky way potentially of dealing with them. Even still, though, those Questing Knights are not doing too hot, kind of struggling a little bit there. The Green Knight senses an opportunity. Thorek a little bit isolated here, even with a couple of Grail Guardians in his vicinity, kind of distracting his attacks there. Green Knight gets a couple of attacks in the back, pops Dolores Blade for the extra damage, up to 645 weapon strength with that active. So even though a lot of those self, you know, weapon strength or melee attack buffs aren't always worth it, depending on the character, certainly in a situation like this, if the Green Knight's able at least to get another attack animation off, they're kind of just like running side by side for the time being. But looks like regrowth there being used once again on the Grail Guardians. Heal them significantly. I do think regrowth just should be nerfed. To be honest, pretty much every single faction that it's on, it's mostly an automatic include. I mean, some Empire builds don't use it if you have characters with self-healing, or, you know, other, maybe same thing like Lewin with the Bretonnia build. I guess you could get away with maybe using Heavens or Beasts, but really, most of the time you want to take Lore of Life for the factions that can take it. And I think if you were to nerf regrowth somewhat, it would definitely affect those factions' overall power level, which in some ways would be positive for like Tzeentch and Bretonnia. For others, you might need to find some other ways to kind of augment them, such as the Empire, right? A big one would be bringing Griffin HP up to par with, you know, Hippogriffs and other similar flying monsters, which I have talked about ad nauseum on this channel, and I will continue to do so until it gets changed. But, I mean, for High Elves, too, I think they're mostly fine without regrowth. I mean, you do take it, but because they have, again, like, the Empire is so much variety in magic, you can do a lot of different things and have your magic pay for itself rather than just healing. So they, of course, have other healing sources, too, like Star of Averlorn, which is separate and would not be affected by rebalancing regrowth. So it's definitely something I advocate for these days, just openly and freely. Nerf regrowth. But anyway, here we're going to see the Green Knight Grail Guardians pull away. They're going to go after these isolated units. And this is technically all according to tournament rules, right? So the Green Knight goes in the forest so he can get that Sacred Guardian passive to get some passive healing for the late game and just kind of watch the balance of power as that happens as well. Grail Guardians are going to continue attacking. The Peasant Bowmen also come forward, continue attacking. And as long as these units are not shattered, it's not breaking the attacking rule, right? You're still fulfilling with something, so yeah. Maybe a little bit of a pursuit on a shattered unit, but that's not something I would call as a rule break in a tournament, certainly. Especially when the Green Knight's now charging in as well. These guys are moving to engage. They're not just charging in head first, though, which is something you're totally allowed to do, is try and flank around and not just charge head first into some anti-large units. So they're going to do so while the Green Knight pulls away. The Fae's going to run an attack in here, just so that, you know, in good faith, even if, I don't know, single entities might not necessarily count as attacking, still have something in there just to show a good effort. But, of course, there is one isolated unit over here, so once again, Pigmen can hunt that down while the Green Knight heals in the forest. Although it is going to shatter pretty promptly, which forces him to now come back and start attacking this Dwarven defensive position. Grail Guardians will start to cycle charge a bit. Enchantress moves in, and Green Knight from the back is going to use his terror against a lot of these very tattered dwarf units that are kind of being kept in a more safe position here. Rangers and miners and whatnot all going to almost immediately tear out. Obviously, the Slayers will be quite dangerous still. We're going to have another Rune of Doom as well, which hits all these units around Thorek. Going to give a nice melee attack buff, help drag down those Grail Guardians, and they certainly are taking some damage, especially with that flammable debuff from the Dragonback Slayers slowing them down. They're having a hard time actually pulling away there, so yeah, quite a few of their unit models getting caught up there. Fae's Drain is still ongoing, hasn't gotten an insane amount of value so far. It does also have the melee attack debuff component, which will help, certainly, especially against like the Dwarf Warriors, but even the Slayers, I mean, it's going to have a pretty good hit chance, but Green Knight moves through to try and finish off Thorek once and for all, which is certainly a risky gambit. Thorek does a little 360 no-scope spell cast and just dips out, which is understandable. He took a couple of real big hits there, and one more hit from the Green Knight clean, and he's just done. So, yeah, we'll see. The Enchantress also, though, is taking significant damage. The Grail Guardians now well below quarter HP, like an eighth. Green Knight finishes off Thorek, though, with a sneaky little side charge. Immediately pulls away. Will it be enough? Grail Guardian's going to pull around once again for another charge here. An attempt to all form up. It's just the Slayers at this point. Dwarfs have pretty much hit army losses. I guess not technically. There are some Corlers here still fighting. Rangers, rather. Rangers over here as well. Going to get charged down by the Grail Guardians. The Green Knight now pull away. The Enchantress also going to move through. Let's fast forward a little bit through some of this late game cleanup as the non-Slayer units are routed off. And eventually it's just going to come down to the last stand of the Slayers. Very appropriate for the Dwarves. Question is, will they all fulfill their Slayer Oath, or will they actually win? Two very different things. Both are wins in a way, but I guess not really. Would being killed by a Bretonnian Knight in an open field battle fulfill your Slayer Oath? I'm guessing probably not. Like, it doesn't have to be more specifically against, like, Skaven or Greenskins or Chaos. Something, you know, not necessarily like another Order faction, although certainly, I guess, if Bretonnia or the Enchantress had done something so wrong as to wrong the Dwarves in such a severe manner, maybe. Loreheads will have to let me know. A bit of a quagmire, that one, probably, but nonetheless, their 0 armor doesn't matter at all against his 100% armor-piercing damage, so this is one matchup specifically where just having a little bit more weapon strength would definitely benefit the Green Knight, having some other kind of support abilities to increase killing power of the Enchantress and the Grail Guardians that remain, but these 3 Grail Guardians and the 2 Heroes of Bretonnia. I mean, they're all Heroes of Bretonnia, let's be real. Continuing to smash the Slayers. The Slayers desperately trying to fell the last few Knights here. We'll just keep it in cinematic cam, even though this is going to take some time. Absolutely gorgeous unit models and animations, even still, even though some of them are quite old. They've been updated a little bit over time. Last of the Grail Guardians gets dragged down right there, literally at the same time. They die to a man. We'll fast forward a little bit now as the last of this goes through. Enchantress is actually going to rout. And despite what the balance of power may have you think, this is actually extremely close because everyone's exhausted and the Slayers have enough stats that even though the Green Knight is significantly superior to them, like, he still has to roll an attack animation and might potentially like either miss a specific unit model or they might be able to block his damage. Not to mention the Slayers are also getting constant attacks, whereas his attack animations, you know, once every few seconds or so. A little bit of stutter stepping, side stepping around as well to kind of get into place for the animations. So Slayers are actually getting quite a bit of damage during this time. If I pull up the health bars again, you can see the Green Knight's down below 1,000. So just to add some suspense, let's remove the health bars once again. And we'll just let the Green Knight fight it out in the sunset here against these Dwarfs. Ooh, nice decapitation there. Another nice hit there. Ooh, it's down to just the 4 of them. Those 2 managed to survive that hit. Ooh, although that one fells another. This guy's still going strong. Oh, he even does the belly flop attack. The dreaded belly flop right as the homie's mohawk is sent flying through there. Ooh, and another. The death blow does hit. Now it's just the 1v1. Ooh, the spinning attack animation beautifully riposted by the Green Knight. And he manages to just squeak out a win. Incredibly close. And a nice carry, honestly, by the Green Knight there at the end. I thought the Slayers might actually be able to fully drag him down, which would have been hilarious. But interesting build overall. I mean, the peasant mobs are going to be cost-effective pretty much no matter what they do, whether they die or actually do stuff. Yeah, some of the foot squires get close to half their value, or a little over half, which is nice. Foot squires, I mean, they had a rough go of it, just getting absolutely exploded. Grail tier units, obviously, Grail Guardians, absolute beasts, hence why they're limited in most tournament rule sets, and it's very appropriate to see here. The Grey Knight, though, actually does outvalue them going after some single entities, even though he has less damage dealt overall. He's just kind of hunting the high-value things, like Thorek in particular. But also taking out those flame cannon crews, even though one flame cannon was able to beautifully pay for itself. All these Slayers also getting insane damage value, as is to be expected in this matchup. The Miners with Blasting Charges, love them. I mean, their melee attack when buffed, their weapon strength, when their melee attack is buffed by Thorek, they actually can hit Bretonnian cavalry somewhat, and the Blasting Charges helps against their infantry, so they're honestly a great pick here. The Rangers also decently cost-effective and cheap. Get some really nice value shooting in. But not quite enough from Complex Slayer. Very, very close game and certainly an enjoyable one to watch. So hopefully you would agree and leave a like if you do. Subscribe, all that jazz. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.